So during this 6-year period where I'm working for my last boss, when I got the job, I was like, woohoo, I'm in media. That was 2017. And I didn't even go for Trump until 2018. And that's when I kind of started being radicalized. And then the pandemic happened. And then I was like an out Trump supporter. And then I went to like one rally in DC, another rally in DC. Then I went to January 6th. And my boss, this is ultimately what led to my firing from the job, is like my boss heard me while he was on waiting for his flight to Hawaii for a vacation, actually read a headline about me being on Megyn Kelly talking about January 6th, because it was one of the first shows she did when she got her show, and was interviewing me, and I was talking about how the media completely had overblown it and they were not being honest about what went on. And I was saying, like, it was no big deal. January 6th was very like super chill, you know. Like I'm like the part where the part of the building where I was at was pretty chill. Just a lot of people meandering around. I'm like, there were kids there. There were dogs in costumes. There were people in costumes. The food was great. Nobody talked about how good the food was at January 6th. So like, I'm just like messing around, talking to Megyn Kelly about how, like, I was saying it was chill. January 6th was pretty chill. And so he hears this while he's waiting for a flight. So he just was like, whoop, like, because he knew I was kind of dabbling in stand-up, but I wasn't telling him, like, this is my dream. And, like, I'm doing it more and more. And guess what? I don't want to be your assistant for the rest of my life, believe it or not. I don't want to fetch chicken salad sandwiches until I'm dead. So he heard that. He was like, whoa, not only is she not a liberal like me, you know, like everybody in the entertainment industry, but she's for Trump. She's radicalized, and she was at January 6th. And guess what, dude? You signed off on those vacation days. So he wanted to fire me right then and there when he found out he was at January 6th. Part of my job was to read his emails. Part of my job was to send emails for him. Like a lot of executive assistants, you're in their inbox. You're like, I would have to type up drafts to emails. And he's old. He shouldn't have been working anymore. But my typical, like, the day in the life of my job was like, I type up a draft of an email and then I literally put it back in his draft so he can look at it and press send. And that was how most of his emails got answered. So would
you get fired for political reasons or just conflict of interest?
Yes, absolutely political reasons. Because part of my job, I see his email. I know that he saw the Megyn Kelly interview or listened to the Megyn Kelly interview. I see him emailing the director of HR. This is a liability for Hearst. This is a liability for the Academy. People can't know that she's, was at January 6th. Like,
it's not just you though. Like, just to clarify here,
yeah.
I just found out last night that Rob Schneider's blacklisted from.
I just learned that recently too. I had no idea.
Because he voted for Trump. He couldn't even get him in Happy Gilmore 2, Adam Sandler, because he voted for Trump. Like, I didn't know the blacklisting even at a low level. Like, no offense, but you're like, at this point, a nobody in the Academy. You're EA.
I'm an executive assistant.
To be rude to all my EAs and my EA too.
I was definitely a nobody. I wasn't like, yes, I would have to go to the events. Yes, I would have to go to the International Emmys every year. And like, but I was helping. I'm there to like fetch him drinks and like hold his coat and like tell him the names of people. And like I was working these events, right? So I'm not there to like move up. I'm not a filmmaker. I'm not like trying to be an actor. So right. I wouldn't be like, wow, I can network in this job. No, not at all. I was very much a desk slave. And like when I would visit him in the hospital, he literally handed me his bedpan to pour out. Like that's the level of fame.
Sure, when I met you too, I did the same thing.
Yeah, I'm like, just like, hand it to me.
Here's
just
my bedpan.
Just give me your urine. And so anyway, he where was it? He learns that I'm a Trump voter. I was at January 6th, and he becomes like pissed because he can't fire me for going to January 6th because he signed off. I took those days as vacation days. So I see this whole conversation back and forth between him and the director of HR. Like, we got to fire her. This is a liability. We can't have somebody who's on the right wing working for me. We can't have somebody who's a January 6th working for me. And he couldn't. And the same thing. Oh, she's a podcaster. And then the HR guy writes back like, we can't prove that any of this was done during work hours, like, and which they couldn't, which I wasn't. I was doing it like stand up on the weekends and then podcasting at night after I'd get home from work or whatever. So they couldn't prove that I was like doing anything on work time.
Is this illegal here? Where somebody is trying to get you fired because of your political beliefs.
Yeah.
And this is not a religious organization.
No.
And you were on vacation, so this is not on during work hours that
you're
violating policy.
Yep.
And you didn't commit a crime, and it's normal political activity during a very politically active time,
I'm there to do man on the street interviews. I'm there to just like survey, like be like a citizen journalist.
But you voting for Trump they could tell you were a Trump supporter, and because you were a Trump supporter, you were essentially fired from the international Emmys.
But he couldn't fire me for that. He wanted to fire me for that. The HR guy was like, we can't fire her for this. It was the that got me, because once they started, so we were remote for like, I don't know, a year and a half or something. They finally like, oh, time to go back into the building. You can either test or you can get the, I'm like, I'll test every freaking day if I need to. I'm not getting the, like, I'll test every week, whatever it is. And I submitted a like religious exemption. I submitted like a medical exemption, and like that was fine for a while until suddenly it wasn't. And they were like, well, you need to get the by December 10th or whatever, 2021, or else we're going to consider you voluntarily resigned. And I was like, I'm not taking it, because I knew I wanted to try to have a baby. And I was like, this hasn't been tested on pregnant women. So, and a million other reasons that we now know. So I'm like, I'm just not doing it. And so they were able to get me fired for that, for the thing. But I know that it was politically motivated, because I have all the emails saved.
Right, because if you were liberal, and you didn't get the, do you think you would have been fired just for that alone, or do you think he would have let you off the hook?
I wonder if I would have still been there, because the exemption was working for a time. Like, they weren't pestering me about it. It was like several months. I think it was like maybe, I don't know, 5 months. Several months had gone by where they were like, all right, she's not gonna get it. She'll just test. And then all of a sudden, like, because I saw his conversations between him and HR. I was like, oh, she's not getting it. And then he's probably like, we can get her out for this. So
yeah, well,
he was
a very cold guy. I feel he's very
constantly
cold
rubbing
winter.
his hands together. Yes.
You know what I mean? Sometimes you even got to rub the outsides of coins, and they lose the clippings. But it's just because you're so cold. You're trying to get the.
But this was absolutely, Elijah, 100% politically motivated. I have the proof. I have all these emails saved. Because it was literally my job to read his emails. And then I remember the HR guy saying, don't breathe a word of this to Chrissie, you know? And I was like,
it was a dark time in political history.
It really was.
People that didn't live through that or didn't stand up don't realize the cost, which is why I don't like people.
Some people reap the benefits of other people sticking their neck out.
Well, I don't like people who act like they're the only ones who suffered. You know, I got this guy in my DMs constantly who was fired during that time for not getting the. And he's always like, you don't know what it's like. I've been canceled. And he's always in my DMs. And I'm like, brother, I had people put guns in my face. I have no nerves in the left side of my face because of what I was doing. And I'm not like better than anyone else. Like, our producer here was facing 5 years in prison and got pardoned by Trump for January 6th. So like, look, and got his house raided. He just got his phone back like years later, you know? So
and were all your nudes gone? You're like, hey,
hey, they said, by the way, you're pardoned, and also nice.
Also good piece.
Also nice rainbow flag emoji. No, but I mean like it's like, you know, these people that sign this out like, I'm the greatest victim, I'm the most canceled. I got like, dude, there are people who are homeless and divorced because they lost their job for not getting vaccinated. And it's like, you know, I know people that lost their marriage. They lost their income. It caused tensions. They got divorced. They lost their house. And it's like, I literally have a friend in Texas. That's what happened to him. And it's like, you know, your suffering's not more than him, guy who got fired from a job, you know, and it might be on a greater scale because of what, you know, is out there, but God doesn't give you greater temptation to that which you are able to withstand. And so, you know, temptation, you know, people always say that God doesn't give you more than you can handle. Yes, he does. People are literally killed for their beliefs. I don't think you can handle death, but what he's saying is he doesn't give you greater temptation, as in like what we were going through wasn't actually death. It was, will you capitulate? Will you do something morally wrong? Will you give into the hive mind? And whether it's you are, you know, got canceled from PayPal, or during that time, I think Hermes, the guy who was here, just got canceled from PayPal, and a couple of his bank just canceled him. Look, that's fine. But are you willing to stand on business, right? And that's the kind of moral question, is like, do you stand up for yourself? And we got to get away from this mentality of like, look, comedians suffered, like Rob Schneider suffered, and Rob Schneider's Jewish. So people can say like, oh, well, Jews don't suffer. Well, Rob Schneider lost his career because he didn't want to get, and he wanted to vote for Trump because he believed it was the right thing to do. And it's like, you know, is his suffering less than my suffering, your suffering? Not necessarily, because, you know, if you lose what's in your life and in your world for your beliefs, that is admirable. And that's why I like Rob. Like, do I like bad Jewish people? No. Do I think Rob's a bad Jewish guy? No. So why would I hate him for being Jewish? No, I can actually respect the guy because he did stand on his business, you know? And I think that kind of goes in a lot of categories. Like, you lost your job, but here's the flip. This is what I want to get into. Not only did you lose your job, but sometimes God uses evil for good. You know, what the enemy means for evil, God uses it for our good, Scripture says. So how did this work out to where you are now? Because you're successful. Your career is almost as big as your boobs. Sorry,
that'll never happen.
But we're friends, everyone. It's not inappropriate.
I have my own boobs account on Twitter.
Yeah, I know. I've known you for a long time. I remember I got a comment on it on a show she was on. It was called Chrissie's Boobas or something like that for $5 wants to know. No, but you know, innuendo and inappropriate humor aside, which is hard for me to do. Your career changed after. So what happened after you got fired?
It was a blessing in disguise because I always, you know, the guilt of my parents and the fact that they paid for a college degree always kind of sitting on my shoulder. I was always going, you always have to have a job. You always have to have insurance. You always have to, like, don't ever be a financial burden on anybody. Just always have some kind of job. And then when I got fired, I was like, and it was 2021. Right. So still full blown pandemic times. I was like, you know what? Like, let's do this. And then just from talking to my husband, realized, like, yeah, why not do a 5-day-a-week podcast? Why not just, like, interview as many people as I can?
That's hard, by the way. 5-day-a-week podcast, that sounds dumb, but it's exhausting.
It is exhausting. I mean, like, it's especially because you have I didn't even have a studio until, like, the last 6 months, 8 months. That most of my stuff was over, like, Zoom during this time, but just most stand-ups who have a podcast, they just interview other stand-up comedians. It's like very few the ones that are like, you know, obviously Rogan and then Theo Vaughn, that Tim Dillon, they'll interview all types of people. But the average comedian podcast is just very insular, just other comedians at their level. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to do a 5-day-a-week podcast. I'm going to interview all types of people. I want to really talk to people who have been canceled, who have been misunderstood by the internet. So that I was really motivated to talk to kind of like canceled people.